Ah, the driver's license office, where hope goes to die, where you can wait for hours for the privilege of filling out a form. But even though there is no love lost between the driver's license office and just about anybody, news that Alabama is closing down 31 such offices has people up in arms over racism. So what does the driver's license office closing have to do with racism? It's complicated. It's basically all about Alabama's voter ID law, which requires you to show a government-issued photo ID to cast a ballot in an election. For most people, that's a driver's license. But in September, Alabama lawmakers finally approved a state budget, which included cutting millions of dollars to the Department of Public Safety, which would offset those cuts by closing down the driver's license offices, leaving 28 counties with no driver's license offices whatsoever. But among the affected counties were every county where the voter base was more than 75% black. That means if you live in, say, Livingston, Alabama, in the heart of Sumter County, which has a 75% African American population, and you want to get a driver's license, you now have to travel 40 minutes to neighboring Marengo County to do it. As a recent transplant from Mississippi to Alabama, I had to get a new license, so I went to the Shelby County driver's license office and skipped out the door a scant 5 hours later with my new ID. Now, if I had to tack on a 40-minute trip there and another 40 minutes back, that's basically an entire workday. In Sumter County, the average income is a little over $22,000 a year, which leaves a lot of people who are not able to give up 7 hours of pay to make the trip, so they just aren't able to renew their license. And even if you could find the time, but your driver's license is expired, you now need a really good friend who is also willing to give up a workday to drive you. And now some lawmakers who made the decision have said it was never their intent to disenfranchise black and poor voters. The offices that were closed were chosen because they were in rural, less populated counties where there just wasn't enough demand to sustain part-time offices. And that's probably true, but many are countering with the argument that just because it wasn't your intention to disenfranchise poor and black voters doesn't mean you aren't still disenfranchising poor and black voters. So why aren't there any laws in place to stop this from happening, even if it wasn't intentional? Well, there was. The Voting Rights Act used to require certain states and municipalities to get approval from the Department of Justice before making any changes that impacted voting. Alabama was included on this list because, come on, I don't have to explain to you why. You know why. But in 2013, a U.S. Supreme Court decision changed the Voting Rights Act, eliminating the need for pre-approval from the Justice Department. That being said, a number of people have already called for a DOJ investigation into the matter. In the meantime, if you're one of the people in the 28 affected counties, do you have any options? Well, if you just want to get an ID so you can legally drive, not really. But if you want to get an ID to vote, you do have some options. The voter ID law isn't limited to just driver's licenses, so if you have a non-driver ID, a government employee ID, a college or university ID, a military or federal ID, a passport, or a tribal ID, and they're valid, you are good to go. If you have none of these but still want to get a voter ID without leaving your county, you can always head down to the County Board of Registrar's office with your birth certificate or social security card, and they will give you a 100% free Alabama photo voter ID card. So hopefully now you're all caught up on how these closed driver's license offices have people so upset, and as this story continues to develop, we'll keep you updated on AL.com.